All right, so let us continue our discussion on free will. So in a couple of videos back, I was talking about determinism, and I defended indeterminism in the sense that we do not have a good argument for determinism. We divided determinism into scientific determinism and metaphysical determinism, and we explained why scientific determinism fails and we do not have good evidence for metaphysical determinism. Actually, we do have very good support for metaphysical indeterminism based on special relativity. So this video is very valuable for me. It's very exciting for me because this is something that now I've been interested in the problem of free will for a very long time. And after I really understood exactly where the problem was, how I should understand free will, how I should understand libertarian free will. You know, when you have that kind of giant problem and it kind of gets settled in your mind and you find a way to solve it, it's just a very valuable piece of information. And I'm trying to explain the same thing today in the slides that I will present. So it's a very interesting piece of information for me. It's not my own work, it's just what I learned from others, but it's something that I see in other people who also try to talk about free will, and they really miss this very important point about libertarian free will, and that's enough for the whole discussion to basically fall apart. So I will do my best to explain exactly where the problem is, to explain the common fallacy that's usually applied to libertarian free will, and we will see how to find a way out of it. All right, so as I said, so we discussed determinism in previous videos about scientific determinism and metaphysical determinism. And of course, libertarian free will is an incompatibilist position, so we need indeterminism for libertarian free will to work. So there are a couple of videos. So first video, this is what I want to talk about today. What do we actually mean by libertarian free will? How to provide a good definition of it. In the next video, I will talk about causal closure, because that's also, as we will see in the end of this video, will be a kind of objection to libertarian free will. And after we talk about these things, I will talk about how does libertarian free will works. So the reason that I first talk about, I have to first define what I mean by libertarian free will, but why is it that I don't talk about causal closure first? And the reason is that if we understand what we mean by libertarian free will, and then we go into causal closure, and we understand why causal closure fails, then we actually provide a very good ground for understanding how libertarian free will actually works. And that will be the third video. So that's the order that I'm gonna go for the future videos. So today we will talk about what do we mean by libertarian free will. Of course, we're going to start with by some definitions. Now these are the definitions that I will work on. I will work with, and I would take it that these are not very controversial, but I'm open to discussions on them. So first, one of the concepts that I will use very much during this talk is the concept of contrastive reason. So what is a contrastive reason? A contrastive reason is a reason or an explanation as to why an event A happened rather than different event B. So imagine that you have a process and it has an outcome like A, but the outcome could have been different. It could have been B. It's possible for it to be B, right? A contrastive reason is a reason why we have A rather than B. That's what we mean by contrastive reason. And the next topic is random process. What do we mean by a random process? Now, given a set, this is how I define the random process. Given a set of background information. Now, when I talk about background information, the reason is that at least my background on randomness and also probability theory comes from Bayesian understanding. So the background information is crucial in understanding the random process. So given a set of background information I, a process with the outcome A is called random if and only if there's no contrastive reason R in I to explain why A happened rather than B. All right, so if you have a process and the outcome is A, but it's also possible for the outcome to be B. Now, given a set of background information I, if there's no contrastive reason in I to explain why A occurred rather than B, then we call that a random process. But of course, this randomness is conditioned on that background information I. And we might be able to define like a pure random one if we extend the background information as large as possible. In that case, we can call something pure random. But this is just what I just like to keep it conditional on the background information I. So these are the two definitions. Let me just give you an example just to make things clear. So the example 1, flipping a coin is a random process if background information I does not include initial state of the coin. So if we don't have the initial state of the coin, the position, the orientation, the dynamics of it, the initial force, then there is no contrastive reason in I as to why it came heads rather than tails, right? So when we flip a coin, it might come heads or tails. If it comes heads, it could have come tails. If it comes tails, it could have come heads. Now, given this background information, so assuming that we do not have access to the initial state of the coin, if that's the background information that we have, then there is no contrastive reason why it came heads rather than tails. We do need those information. Without those information, we cannot tell really why it came heads instead of tails. So in that sense, given this I, flipping a coin is a random process, and that's why we can attribute a probability distribution to it. On the other hand, a computer program printing A or B, given information about the state of the machine prior to printing, so all the information that you can have about the state of the machine, or even more if you need, is not a random process because there is a contrastive reason. And that's the algorithm of printing and the initial state of the machine explaining exactly why A was printed rather than B. Right? So if you have a process and your machine gives A, prints A, but you say, hey, it could have printed B, right? And then you say yes. Okay, but why? Why A? You can actually look into the algorithm. You can see the machine step by step, all the steps that it took from the initial state that it had to printing A. So that's a contrastive reason. That explains why it printed A rather than B. So that printing machine, given those information about the state of the machine, is not a random process because it does have a contrastive reason in the background information that we were given. So those are the definitions that I work with, right? So we saw two scenarios. In these two examples, we saw two scenarios. One was in the flipping of the coin. We saw that there is no contrastive reason in I, and we call that a random process. And two, we had a contrastive reason in I, and that was a non-random process. But note that we can actually say more about these two scenarios. There's some other information that we can talk about here. First, in the random process, when we say that there is no contrastive reason in I, and when we say that there is a random process, what we mean basically is that in terms of replays, and by replay we mean the repetition of the process with those background information I fixed. If we do replays, then that process would give us different replays. So if you replay the same process over and over again, the outcome would be different. It will not always be heads, it will not be always tails, it would be like something around 50-50 if we fix I. Now, if we have, in the second case, for the computer, where we did have contrastive reason in I, what would happen if we keep repeating the same process? So if we go back to the exactly initial state of the machine and print again, and we go back again and print again, if the machine printed A in the first time, all the replays would also give A. Because as we said, the state of the machine or the state of the whole universe, we can include it, and the algorithm are fixed. And if they're fixed, then if we keep doing that, all the replays will be exactly the same. So in these two examples, in addition to the fact that one of them is random, the other was non-random, we can also explain it in terms of different replays or fixed replays, right? So why is it that in the random process is different replays? Because the background information provides no explanation as to why A happened rather than B. So it's just a matter of chance which one happens. And as I explained, why is it a fixed replays for the machine? Because the contrastive reason in I, and this is the crucial point, is the cause of the outcome. The state of the machine and the algorithm, they cause the outcome. So for a fixed I, the outcome is fixed. So for these two scenarios, when we look at them, we see these two options, right? So one is the random, where there is no contrastive reason in I, and the other one that is not random, and we do see a contrastive reason, and that contrastive reason is the cause of the outcome. So here's the point. Here we get to the libertarian free will. Libertarian free will proposes that these are not the only two options. So the first option was the contrastive reason, that there is a contrastive reason, that's the machine, non-random, and the replays are fixed, or in other sense, the contrastive reason is the cause. In the second case, we have no contrastive reason in I, the process is random, or the replays are different. The libertarian free will says that there is a third option. What if we have contrastive reason, so the process is non-random, yet the replays are different, which basically means that the contrastive reason is not a cause. Because if it were a cause, then a replay of it would produce the same result. So libertarian free will basically proposes this third option. And as it will become clear in this video and the next videos, there are actually no good reasons to suppose that the third option is impossible without begging the question. Actually, we do have prima facie reasons based on our own experience why it is possible. We will see that in a moment. But let's just stay here for a moment. So again, we saw two examples. We saw it in these two possible options. One option is you have a contrastive reason and replays are fixed. We don't have contrastive reason, we have different plays. Libertarian free will says there is a third consistent option. Contrastive reason, non-random, different replays. So it's not a random process, but the replays are different, and which means that the contrastive reason is not a cause. Let's go for an example. So, for instance, let's say you go to a restaurant and you are in the process of deliberating over selecting a salad or a burger for dinner. Let I be the laws of nature and the state of the universe prior to the deliberation process. All right, so I'm giving all the information that a determinist would require, right? So we have a process of deliberation. There's a start to it, there's an end to it, and at the end, we will make our choice. So let's say that I is the state of the universe at the starting point of our deliberation and all the laws of the universe. This is why I say that this is prima facie possible, that we have a contrastive reason and different replays. It's possible that there is a contrastive reason for either choice. We just have to ask the agent, why did you choose X rather than Y? So we're saying that these two both will be true, right? Contrastive reason, different replays, or reason is not a cause. Where do we get the contrastive reason? Well, what is the contrastive reason? Contrastive reason is a reason or explanation why A happened rather than B. So if the person selects a burger and we want to have a contrastive reason for that choice, all we need to do is to ask that person. We ask, hey, why did you choose the burger? And then the person replies, because it was more delicious. Well, there we go. That's a contrastive reason. That's the reason explains why burger was selected rather than the salad. So that's a contrastive reason that we have. If it had gone the other way, if the person had chosen salad, then we would ask, hey, why did you choose a salad? They will say, because it's healthier. There we go. That's a contrastive reason. That explains why the salad choice was chosen rather than the burger choice. So we do have a contrastive reason. Now that's not very controversial, but the second claim is that the replays can go different ways, that the contrastive reason is not a cause. Now, the fact that replays can go different ways, well, that's just the concept of free will, right? That's the feeling that we have, like, hey, I could have chosen differently. But the crucial point is that that contrastive reason is not a cause. That's crucial for understanding libertarian free will. So I will go into more details. So one, again, there is a contrastive reason for either choice. So if you choose a burger, you choose a salad, you know it. So the reason that the agent provides explain why a choice was made during the deliberation process rather than another choice. That is a contrastive reason by definition, correct? The next point about contrastive reason, as I said, is that the contrastive reason might change in each replay as the choice might change. So how do we know the contrastive reason? We have to ask the agent. We have to ask the rational agent who did a deliberation process, why did you choose this option? So the contrastive reason, by definition here, is the reason for which the agent chose what he chose. Right? If you apply the definition to this deliberation process of a rational entity, the contrastive reason is the reason for which the agent chose what he chose, and we get that information by asking the agent why he chose what he chose. 2, replays can go different ways. As we said, that's the free will sense that we have. This is the important point. The contrastive reason is not a cause. There are 2 reasons that we can explain why it cannot be a cause. 1, if contrastive reason were a cause, then it would either fix the outcome, and so the replays would be fixed, or it would not fix the outcome, and the outcome would be random. Why? Because contrastive reason was not enough to explain completely why one happened rather than the other. Now, this is a very common objection that people usually have to libertarian free will. They say, okay, let's say you say that, okay, you have a contrastive reason, right? But the problem that they have is that they think contrastive reason as a cause. And they ask, okay, does this contrastive reason fix the outcome or not? And if you say that it fixes the outcome, they say, okay, then all the replays would be exactly the same thing. Your choice is determined. You're not free. But if you tell them that, no, it's not actually fixed, then they say, okay, wait a minute now. You have this contrastive reason. We go through all of these different replays, and each time they would go different ways, and we would say yes. And they say, okay, but that means that contrastive reason was not enough to explain the outcome. Because you basically have that contrastive reason, right? So imagine that burger that we have and we say that it's delicious, right? That reason, that belief that I have that burger is delicious and I have that desire, that exists in all replays. Now, either that desire will fix me on burger or it won't. If it doesn't fix me on that burger, it means that we have already used this resource of contrastive reason, yet the choice can differ. It's like we burn that contrastive reason, we have it, but that's not enough to explain, because even though we do have that contrastive reason in each replay, sometimes you choose the salad, sometimes you choose the burger. It seems that there is no more explanation to be done. The contrastive reason has already been used. There's no more to be explained, yet we go to different ways. But that's exactly the problem, because if you think about it as a cause, then you say, okay, as a causal explanation, it's already been used, because in each replay, I have that contrastive reason. But contrastive reason is not a cause. The contrastive reason is the reason for which the agent chooses. So in each replay, when they choose different ones, the contrastive reason changes based on the choice. Now, there's another reason why it cannot be a cause. If contrastive reason were a cause, then we would have contrastive reasons by transitivity of causal relations. And causal relation is a transitive relation. It means that if A is sufficient for B, B is sufficient cause for C, then A is sufficient cause for C. As I explained here, if R1 is a sufficient cause for C and R2 is a sufficient cause of R, then R2 would be a sufficient cause or a contrastive reason for C. Why? Because if we assume that that desire that I have, that belief that I have that burger is more delicious, if that's a contrastive reason in a sense of a cause, then of course that's not like an immediate cause. There is something in between. And we cannot say that there's something special about this cause. So if there is a cause before that or after that, in the same chain, they also have the same right to claim as a contrastive reason. However, this is not acceptable for us. And there's a very interesting example by Davidson on two climbers. So the example is that imagine that you are climbing a mountain and you're with your friend and you're on this on a piece of rock, and then your friend slips. And now he is hanging on your rope, and your rope is you're also hanging from a hole, right? Now, the point is that you have a choice here, whether to cut the rope or not. Now, in the libertarian free will sense, you have these two choices. If you cut, and I ask you, why did you cut? You might say, okay, because I wanted to save my life, and the rope could not handle both of us, so I just wanted to save my own life. That would be the contrastive reason. If you didn't cut it, and I would ask you, why didn't you cut it? You would be like, okay, because I was trying to save both lives. I had a very small chance that the rope might handle both, and I thought, okay, it's better just to take that chance rather than just cut the rope and kill my friend, or let my friend be killed. Right? So that's one scenario. Now let's think about that case, that you cut the rope for this contrastive reason that you wanted to save yourself because the rope was not enough to handle both of you. Now imagine a different scenario. You're in the start of process of deliberation, and you're thinking, what should I do? And you're thinking about these reasons. Well, maybe I should trust the chance. Maybe I should cut the rope and save myself and let my friend be killed. But at that moment, that thought, thinking about that reason to save myself because the rope cannot handle both of us, it's so disturbing for you that it causes you to shake, it causes your hand to tremble, and you accidentally cut the rope, and your friend falls down. Now, if contrastive reason is a cause, then we must say that you cut the rope because you wanted to save your own life. But we wouldn't agree with that, right? Imagine again, you're thinking about it, you still haven't decided yet, but you tremble and you cut the rope. And then we say, okay, yeah, you cut it because you wanted to save your life, but that's not true. You will say, no, that's not true. But we say, hey, look, that reason, that belief that, hey, like this rope cannot handle both of us, that desire, hey, I want to save my life, that caused you to tremble. And that trembling caused you to cut the rope. So in other words, that belief, that desire caused you to cut the rope. That's how a contrastive reason works as a cause. But we would deny that. We would say, hey, it was an accident. I did not cut the rope for that reason. And that exactly shows our intuition, that there's a difference between choosing for a reason and being caused by that reason. So this is again why contrastive reason is not a cause. So libertarian free will says that, hey, look at these options, look at all the examples that you do. It's possible. We can provide a contrastive reason. We can provide the reason why we chose the burger rather than salad. And that reason is not a cause. So in that sense, the replays can be different. Yet the process is not random. the process has a contrastive reason. And the main fallacy against libertarian free will is just to assume that the only two options that we have are the first two. It's either a random option or a machine. But that's begging the question against libertarian free will. By just assuming that those are the only two options, there's another third combination possible. Now, there are a couple of very interesting points here that you can also check, and you will see why libertarian free will makes a lot of sense, and we also see that in our experience. And there's another important point here. That's why I talked about deliberation process. That's important. Now, libertarian free will therefore requires, now I'm basically summarizing both options, like having a contrastive reason, different replays. Libertarian free will therefore requires a rational entity who can provide a deliberate, non-causal, contrastive reason. See, so I'm smashing all of them together. It has to be a deliberation process, it has to be non-causal, and it has to be a contrastive reason. They have to be able to provide a deliberate, non-causal, contrastive reason why they chose X rather than Y. And that's the only way that we will have a free will. This is why for machines, either there is a causal contrastive reason or randomness. Because machines cannot go into a deliberation process, they cannot provide a non-causal contrastive reason. All the explanations that we can get from a machine will be causal. It will be in terms of that gear, it will be in terms of that current, that voltage, that algorithm, whatever it is. It will be a causal contrastive reason. And if it's not a causal contrastive reason, then it will be a randomness. There won't be any contrastive reason. But again, the point is that those two are not the only option. Libertarian free will says that there is a third consistent possibility. The other point is that the deliberation process is crucial. Why? Because if there is no time, if there is no process of deliberation, if there's not enough time, then you cannot really provide a deliberate non-causal contrastive reason. If there is no time, therefore, there is either a causal contrastive reason or randomness again. And I will get to example to see why this actually makes sense. So imagine you go to the restaurant, you want a choice, and then suddenly you're eating your burger. And you're like, hey, wait a minute, what happened? You say, hey, you chose this. You're like, no, I didn't. I didn't even have time to think about my reasons to why go for salad or burger. It just happened. Now, in that case, if we do the replays, well, of course, either is always burger or sometimes burger, sometimes salad. If it's fixed always, no free will. If it changes, it's random. Again, no free will. But why is it both these two cases? Because there's no time to do any deliberation. There's no time for the agent to actually decide a contrastive reason. That's why we need a deliberation process. The agent has to have time to decide which one is the contrastive reason. Also note that this also makes sense. For example, when you touch a hot plate and then you immediately attract your hand. You don't have time to think about that. That's why it's not a choice. It's not a free choice to pull back your hand. It's either a causal contrastive reason. You can find an actual causal link doing that. Or there is some kind of randomness. I don't know. Maybe it's something random in your brain happens. Sometimes you do that. Sometimes you do it differently. But most of the time, you can't say it's causal, right? Most probably will be causal. I don't know. But that's the point. So if there is no deliberation process, if there is no time, that's a problem because sometimes people talk about the choice event only as a choice. They say, okay, everything going on, and then you suddenly choose. But of course, if you don't have any deliberation process, if everything is just going on and then suddenly you choose, then that's going to be either determined, that's fixed replays. I don't use determined because it gets confused with determinism. It's either fixed replays or different replays. Fixed replays, no free will. Different replays, no free will. And they say, okay, therefore free will doesn't make any sense. But that's begging the question. Because by collapsing the time of deliberation process to zero, you make the third option impossible. The third thing is that deliberation is actually important again. Not only the process, not only the timing, but actually there must be a deliberation happening by the agent. The agent has to go over different reasons to think which one to choose. If the options are such that they can actually no deliberation, again, we will have either causal contrastive reason or randomness. For instance, you give two options to the person and the options are almost identical to each other. You tell them, hey, like, okay, lift a hand. It really doesn't matter which one. Just lift one. Even if you give them 1 hour, like what is there to think about? Like what would be a contrastive reason for lifting the right arm rather than the left arm? So in that sense, again, it will be either random, or it will be a causal contrastive reason. Either the replays would be fixed or it would be random. Because the agent is not actually choosing freely anything. They don't care. They will just wait until time passes and then they will just randomly select one of them, or randomly or something determined based on whatever the state of brain they are in. But if you add some cost to it, if you make the choices different, so there is actually something different between these two options, then there can be a rational deliberation about those choices. And of course, there's one strategy remaining for the denier of libertarian free will to show that we are controlled like machines. So on the only two options are the first two options. And that's the argument from causal closure. That's what the causal closure tries to do. And that I will get to it in the next example. Not next example, next video. But so the key point is here, right? If we want to understand libertarian free will, we have to understand this. That it's not only contrastive, non-random fixed replays or non-contrastive, random and different replays. We can have, and we do have, if we just look at our experiences, just investigate them. There is contrastive reason. We provide reasons why we did A rather than B. So that's contrastive reason. That explains everything for us. And different replays in the sense that the contrastive reason is not a cause. But not a cause does not mean randomness because we have contrastive reason. So that's what libertarian free will says. And I mean, you can look at those who deny libertarian free will as almost always the fact that they beg the question while only assuming the first two options. So in the next video, I will go into causal closure to explain why that fails. But as we explain why causal closure argument fails against this third option, about the impossibility of this third option, basically proving that we are trying to prove that we are nothing but the animal that we have, the physical body. What was I going to say? Yeah, okay. In the next video, we'll go into the causal closure. And as we try to explain why that fails, it will actually show us a way to understand the actual mechanism. Maybe not even actual mechanism, because the actual mechanism of the interaction is not really about philosophy. It's about the science of how it works. That would not be interesting. The interesting part is the actual interaction in a sense of, in a kind of philosophical sense. Why is it that we need that kind of interaction? And we will talk about that on the video after the causal closure.